Welcome in, everybody. I'm Joey. If you scrolled over to the Rivals menu recently, chances are you've seen this, the Logitech McLaren G Challenge. It's got 100K in prizes up for grabs, so my greedy ass was immediately interested, to say the least. And plus, you could meet a guy named Lando Norris, who is apparently an actor on Netflix, which is pretty cool. Anyways, how it works is there are 4 total stages lasting about a month apiece, and each stage involves a time trial with a McLaren car. Set the fastest lap you can, channel your inner esports legend and climb the leaderboards, and if you finish in the top 15 to 16 in one of the stages, then you get a super exclusive invite to a private tournament. So, let's see how I stack up, shall we? But first, let's check out how the big kahunas, the MLG pros, are lapping. So this is Hakone. The laps are going to be pretty quick, around a minute 15 for the esports legends up here at the top. I'm looking around the top 350, I think is a good spot for me. I was in the top 350 in the first stage, so let's set that as a goal for this one and see if we can beat it. I think I can. With a little train that could, full of confidence. And the little train's getting a bit of an upgrade. We're driving the McLaren 765 LT Coupe. This thing is a monster. I think McLaren's making some of the coolest cars these days. The coolest looking ones, and some very, very high power too. So this is lap number 1. I've never driven the McLaren before, so this lap is all about trying to spot some braking points, figuring out racing lines, and how much power I can put down out of corners before I spin the car and put it in ceiling fan mode, basically. One big thing I noticed is this section here, the elongated S shape, is going to be the most annoying part of this track, 100%. As you can see from me just completely getting it wrong there. And here was lap 2, where I did a bit of a better job. I wasn't carrying a ton of speed, but it was enough to keep me up with the Ghost, who, by the way, is my buddy. He got a top 1300 time, so that's a 17.474. So if we can beat him, we'll be top 1300. This is still lap 2, and I was close, but trailing him by a couple of tenths. And we're definitely not going to beat him this time around, but it is going to be my first clean lap at 17.931. That'll be a good starting point. The top 350 time was a 16.7, so there's plenty of room for improvement. We can shave off over a second. And here on the third go-around, I was learning about a new tricky section, which is this blind right-hand turn into the downhill section. The blind right-hander is tough enough. You never know when to turn in. And then going downhill, if you get up on that curb, you are going to be out of shape and sliding around all over the place, including the second to last corner here. So when I'm going over those, I'll just need to be a little more careful on the throttle. Don't want to get curb stomped out here. This was lap 5. Through the first section and down the straight, I was ahead of my buddy's Ghost, and the right-hander I actually took pretty well this time, so I'm starting to get the hang of it. Although he is catching up, so I guess it still sucked. Anyways, moving over to the right side, braking between the 100 and the 50 board, back to the left, hanging out in 5th gear, losing control of the back end for a split second under braking there, and around the final corner, we're going to have a chance at beating them if we can take it right. Driving over the curb on the inside, careful not to put too much power down, sliding the car through the final corner, and we're not quite going to beat the Ghost there, but it is going to be an improvement, so that's a 17.533. And then for the next couple laps, I just totally botched the Devil's S's here. That's what I'm going to call it, because it's evil, and it's rude, and it sucks. So there, lap 6, totally going wide. Lap 7, going wide. Lap 8, going wide. Lap 9, can you guess what happened? Went wide. Lap 10, could we get it right? No, we went wide. So yeah, that section of the track certainly has me contemplating putting a big ol' hole in my TV, but I didn't. I internalized the anger, and I let it fuel my performance. That's right, that's what all the athletes are doing these days, and also the mediocre Forza players apparently. But yeah, we're gonna let it fuel our performance. And fuel it did. My 11th loop around the track was a pretty decent one. So through the S's, really getting up onto that curb so I can carry a ton of momentum onto the straight, risking unsettling the car, but how you exit that corner is going to make or break your lap, because you've got 5-10 seconds of straightaway. So losing something as little as 5 miles per hour at the beginning of the straight can turn into a pretty big time loss at the end. And in something like Rivals mode with these time trials, a tenth, a hundredth, a thousandth can mean the difference between a bunch of leaderboard places. So it really does matter a ton coming out of that corner as fast as you possibly can. It might mean I exceed track limits like a noob on 99% of these laps, but it's worth it in pursuit of retiring early with Logitech's money. Here we are finishing off the lap, and we're definitely going to improve as long as I don't hit the wall there and dirty the lap. A splendid job of keeping it out of the wall, and once we cross the line, that lap's going to be a 17.234, so it's good enough to beat my buddy's Ghost, and after I meet my maker in the wall, we'll check the rankings. So it looks like the next Ghost is 810th in the world, which puts me at 811th. And that buttered my biscuits. I was happy with that. Top 1,000 is pretty cool, but I felt like there was still time to gain, especially coming out of the S's, and I don't feel like I sticked this final sector. So I started up this second session, and on the 7th lap of it, I was decently ahead of the Ghost, but lost a couple tenths through the final corners, and it was a drag race down the line, and I just made up enough of that time lost to beat him out by a couple of hundredths. Not a huge improvement, but I'll take it. It's only going to get harder to set faster lap times from here. Case in point, me going wide out of the S's again for a million times in a row. The skip laps were coming in hot, and you see how fast I was getting to that skip lap button on the menu? I mean, if there's a time trial for getting to the skip lap button, then I think I could probably get top 10 in that. Possibly top 5 if I'm feeling good that day. And then I went wide a couple more times, hit a wall, and then this next one after the skip lap was the kicker. Getting up on the curb, sliding into the blind right-hander, and I need to call it there and take a break. And we're back. Took a break, used the facilities, made myself a coffee, topped up on some good memes to get myself in the mood, and it's amazing what taking a break can do. I put in a strong lap here coming out of the S's side by side with the Ghost, and that break was really needed. I felt like I was overdriving the car, trying to do too much, so a bit of a refresh did the trick, and here we are starting the back half of the lap. The Ghost and I still close together, but starting to pull away around that blind right-hander. Coming back downhill, we'll move over to the right side to go back to the left, braking and turning in just around that 100 board. That way I'm taking full advantage of all the track width that's available on the inside of that corner up on the curb. Here we go around the penultimate corner, sticking towards the middle of the track on the exit so that we can cut back towards the left. And then putting the power down back onto the straight, well ahead of the Ghost. This could be the first lap in the 16s, and we crossed the line just getting there. The 16.997. Cutting off 2 tenths was huge, and that got me feeling pretty good, so I stuck with this session for a little while longer. And on lap 21, I've been driving for about 20 minutes up to this point. Got a really great release out of those S's again, and coming around the final corner, if I can stick this, I'm well ahead of the Ghost again. I can see another improvement. There's the Ghost just popping up at the bottom of the screen. Taking a look back at the Ghost, we're over a tenth ahead, and that's going to be a 16.86, so another improvement. And with that, I figured I'd call it quits on this session and go check out the leaderboard to get an idea of where I'm at now. That put me at 392, so I'm top 1%, but I'm not quite at that 350 goal that I set when I started. So to cheat on my homework a little bit, I went and watched the replay of the top guy, TPR Bowkit. The dude is a robot, but I can at least try to replicate a few things that he's doing. And the first thing I notice is his braking point for the first turn. He's braking just about at that last flag sitting outside of the barrier. And into turn 1, he shifts all the way down into 3rd gear, back on the throttle, and then immediately up into 4th. So I was just taking that in 4th all the way, but he shifts down into 3rd to get that rotation in the car, and then back into 4th when he gets on the power. Through the S's, he lifted on entry and then lifted again just before taking it back to the right on the exit. Coming off the straight, braking just before that candy cane curb on the left side. Again, down into 3rd on the power, immediately up into 4th. So a very similar story to turn 1. Rotating the car as fast as he can to get back onto the throttle. And then through the last section, same thing here. Down into 3rd, back up into 4th as soon as he gets onto the power. Keeps it in 4th gear around the majority of the final corner, back up into 5th on the exit, throttle all the way down, and then he powers down towards the line. So a pretty insane lap. Let's see if I can do it. But obviously it wasn't quite as easy as it looked. I started focusing a lot more on my shifting instead of my racing line, and as you can see here around turn 1 on my first attempt, drifting wide, not sticking with the Ghost, as I was just kind of focusing on shifting down into 3rd gear and getting used to shifting up into 4th right after I put the accelerator down. It felt weird. It was definitely uncomfortable, and here's another example at the last turn, shifting down into 3rd again, back on the throttle, up into 4th, and forgetting to stick closer to the right side so that I can cut it back to the left on the final turn. And that ultimately ended up killing that lap. And then I just made a ton more mistakes, just drifting wide, not focusing on the racing line like I mentioned earlier, just leading into a ton of skip laps. But eventually, lap 15 came around, and I actually put something together, believe it or not. Although at turn 1, of course, I still went wide and then feathering the throttle as we continue around the bend, fighting the oversteer. This thing's got 1,000,000 horsepower in it, so it is prone to a little bit of oversteer. Lifting on entry into the S's and back out. This is going to be one of my better exits back onto the straight here. So far, the fastest I've gotten up to is a 191, so let's see if I can get back up there. We see 189, 190, and then back on the brakes. Don't think we saw 91, but we were close, so we are up there and ahead of the Ghost, so that's good news. Fully committing around the blind right-hander, sticking to my line, showing some patience before I get back onto the throttle. A little too much patience. Could have extended a little farther out there, gotten back on the power a bit earlier. And once again, we're down to the final test, the last 2 corners. All I'm telling myself is don't overthink this shit, you noob. Just nail it on this last one. I do miss the apex by a few feet, but I'm still able to carry quite a bit of speed and start gaining on the Ghost again. It seems like my Walmart version of Balkit shifting might be working out for me here. That one's going to be a 16.765. So with another celebratory crash, we'll go ahead and check the leaderboards. That one's going to put me at 334. So that was my top 350 goal. And in hindsight, I should have just called it there, not done any more laps, and just been happy with what I got. But I did 36 more laps because I knew I went wide at turn 1 and then I messed up the last turn, and I knew there was still time to be gained. So this was my 37th lap of the next session. That took me 25 minutes to get here. And you can rest assured, American water, aka light beer, was consumed in large quantities after this one, in both celebration and pain, I assure you. But we can check one thing off the list, and that's that I nailed turn 1, finally getting it right, coming through the S's nicely. And I should say the Ghost in this session was the 100th ranked in the world, so I'd expect to be a little bit behind him, but I thought let's mix it up, try something new, see if I can learn anything from his line and actually driving it behind him. It obviously didn't work for the first 36 laps, but eventually we got there, and I stuck pretty close to him here. But we're starting to get into that butt-cheek clenching territory, right? Towards the end of the track where I'm starting to get nervous, I'm tensing up, I need to stay loose, breathe, and get the job done. So far, we're sticking close, right behind him. One more corner to go. Can I actually hit the apex here? Better than I've taken it most times. And unless my brain has a full-on meltdown, we're going to get to the line. Let's check the time. It's a 16.6. On the verge of my body shutting down completely. I pulled through and shaved off a 1/10.5. Feels good. And here's the final rank for me. 237 in the world. That's top 0%, so that looks better than top 1%. I like that. Not quite good enough to qualify for the private tournament. Still about a second off from the leader, but it's good enough for me.
Nice job, team.
And if you guys also did some laps, feel free to put your best times in the comments. I'd love to see what kind of times you guys were doing. I know a few of you, quite a few of you, probably kicked my ass, so definitely let me hear it. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. It's been a while since I did some Rivals mode on the channel, so if you did, be sure to do all the stuff that the YouTubers tell you to do at the ends of videos, and I will talk to you soon. Alrighty, bye everybody.